Okay, why don't we get going? So just to give you a sense of what we're going to talk about today, I think some of you know that FBN and ADM have a partnership in place. And that partnership is around really technology development. It's also around a kind of a shared view and a positive view of farmers and their contribution to sustainability and regenerative ag and the opportunities that exist there. You know, I think in the world there's sometimes misunderstanding about how the food system works. About how food is produced, about the role of farmers. And, you know, at FBN, our goal has always been to create transparency, use technology, use data to create opportunity for our customers. And what we found with ADM is that ADM is thinking about this in largely the same way. And ADM also has the assets and the reach to make that happen. So in this session, I think what hopefully you're going to hear is a bit more about ADM, but also more about the opportunity for farmers in that food supply chain and in a lot of the transformations that are going to take place. So just to get going real quick, my background, I'm the CEO and co-founder of FBN. You know, I don't like to talk too much publicly or to the media. Charles handles that. As you can see, he's a lot more friendly than I am, a lot more approachable. So he's the guy who talks to the media. But I love everything that we do as a business. And I actually, remarkably, I actually know a lot of the farmers who are here. In some cases, signed them up myself for FBN back when we were first getting started or at our first farmer-to-farmer event 7 years ago. And so I've gotten really deep in understanding their operation, the challenges, the opportunities, and what it's like to be a small business owner in rural America. So, you know, I'm very proud to have a business where we serve that community and serve that group of people. And my role really is just to facilitate more than anything else. And I'd like to introduce John Grossman, who is the president of North America Grain and Oilseeds. He's a very long-time veteran in the agriculture space. He also has a very interesting background that he will tell you about. I'm going to hand it over to you. Maybe tell us a little bit to start with about your background, you know, your role in the company, how you got into agriculture, all of that stuff.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, you can hear me okay. So, good afternoon to everybody here. Thank you, Emil. Very happy to be here, and I think you know, this is has been a great event for all of us. I think I've been particularly impressed with some of the speakers. So, I have a farming background, which is no news. Probably I'm a bit of a different kind of background because I was born and raised in Brazil. So I have a Brazilian farming background. So I got involved in agriculture because of my family. And I went to the ag school. I am agronomist. And I think one thing that always intrigued me is I grew up in a country that was supposed to be the country of the future. But the future never arrived. And I, you know, my first job in the industry was to work with farmers to convince them to grow corn in Brazil. Because many people back in the 90s were of the opinion that the Brazilian, you know, land was not good for corn, it was good for soybeans. So we should grow beans and import corn from our next door neighbor, Argentina. As crazy as it sounds. So I think that gave me a lot of drive, to take the next steps and see an opportunity to change and reshape the environment and the agriculture space in South America. Then I think what is your next question? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
So I've been with ADM for the last 24 years. So I joined ADM in South America, and I've been moving around. I spent a number of years in South America, but I also spent a number of years in North America before I moved to Europe. So my last 10 years I was managing the oilseeds and ag services businesses in Europe, which is basically a minor scale of what we have in North America.
Very interesting. I'm going to intersperse a question we didn't talk about because it just occurred to me. I'm sorry, so
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. But since you have experience having been on a farm in South America and having worked in North America, tell me about the similarities and differences that you found between farming, where it's headed in South America, farmers in South America and North America. What do you see the same and different?
I think that the scale in South America is different, right? Brazil is a very large country. And the scale of the farms you have, I'll give you an example. I mean, my family, we have a farm in Mato Grosso, which I'm not directly involved with. I'm kind of a distant advisor. But it's relatively small for the region. It has 7,000 hectares, right? Which is relatively small for the region. I think a 7,000 hectare farm here would be a much sizable farm. So I think scale is one of the differences.
So sorry, I'm not familiar with the metric system. So 7,000 hectares is how many acres roughly? I don't know. It's like it's bigger. It's bigger.
It's 15,000.
15,000 acres.
Yeah.
So you're talking about big scale farms, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then I think the other difference is infrastructure. I think North America is in a different position in terms of infrastructure. South America still relies on truck to move grain for large distances. I think, I witnessed, not very long ago, we starting rail tracks in many parts of the country, so which is a competitive advantage of North America. So in terms of infrastructure, North America is well ahead in that regard. But Brazil is becoming a formidable competitor. It's catching up real quick, and I think there's a lot of investment there.
Very interesting. Yeah. So I think, I don't know how many of you have visited South America or been there, but I think it's important, consideration as you think about your own operation, because it's a global market, right? For these grains.
Absolutely. I think I did both. My early years, I was taking Brazilian farmers to see agriculture in U.S. And later on, actually, I have been doing the other way around. I've been seeing American farmers going to South America. I know many associations I hosted there. They were coming and they wanted to speak to ADM in South America. I represented the company many occasions with different associations. So it's interesting that we have been seeing both dynamics.
Yeah.
But I think is relevant, right? You need to know who your competitor is.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about ADM. I think level set, one of the things that for me, when I was engaging with ADM, and I've worked in the ag industry for a decent amount of time, I'm sure many of you in the room do business with ADM yourselves or may consider it. And I'm not sure that I was as familiar with the organization and its reach as I've become in terms of both the strategy, the reach of the company, who they do business with, where they do business. Maybe tell us real quick a little bit about the footprint, the different assets and the kinds of strategies and initiatives that you're pursuing right now.
So just to be clear, I mean, we don't farm as ADM. We work with farmers, and we have a lot of respect, and we have a great relationship with farmers. So, and working with farmers means service farmers. Technological innovation means provide personal solutions to the farmers' needs. And I think we have been doing this successfully all over the world. We engage with, just to give a bit of a scale, 220,000 farmers, globally speaking, 60,000 farmers in North America, give or take. And evidently we have a sizable business in terms of scale. Globally we process 42 million tons of oil seeds. We have in North America, is about 21 million tons of capacity that we have of crushing processing capacity of oil seeds, soybeans, canola, sunflower. I can give you some other numbers. I think we have 1,800 barges in the Mississippi River. We have, I think, 11,300 rail cars that we own in North America. So we have hundreds of different locations where we have origination centers, we have processing facilities, and we also have innovation centers. So we're a nutrition company, but with a strong root and connection with the farmers. Perhaps the best way to represent, we know a lot about farmers and farming. and we also know a lot about end users, consumers, I think large CPG companies. That's probably the right way to represent where we are in the value chain.
Yeah, that's great summary. And I want to get to a point that I wanted to make, and some of you who are FBN members here, many of you, all of you, I guess, if you're here, is why is ADM and FBN work together? Or why do we want to work together? Well, you heard from John right now about the footprint. So let me give you a perspective. So we want to bring opportunities to our farmer customers. So all of you that are here, to make more money, to save money, to have price transparency, to have technology, to have all your contracts in one place, your scale tickets in one place, to be able to get a premium if you're farming sustainably, all of these things. We also want to make sure that we define those things in a way that's advantageous to your operation. But here's the truth and the harsh reality of it. If we didn't have partnerships like as FBN, we actually wouldn't be able to do very much of that. And the reason is because, you know, FBN is a technology company, right? You come to FBN.com and you do certain things there. You interact with us for inputs, you interact with us for data and software and analytics, and maybe for financing too. But we don't have the downstream connectivity through the food chain. So, for example, if a farmer is to get a premium for their crop, I can wish for it to happen. I want it to happen. I want you guys to get paid more. But I can't actually make it happen, right? We have to make that whole supply chain work in order for that to occur. And that's part of the reason that partnerships like the one we're making are really important, because, you know, ADM has the infrastructure and the facilities and the connectivity downstream to be able to get that opportunity back to the farmer level, right? Whereas no matter what we do as FBN, that's not possible for us. We're not in processing of food. We don't have infrastructure. We don't have barges. We don't have the ability to handle and move grain. It's not something that as a company that we can do, right? It's not a competency of ours, so to speak. So ADM's been doing it more than anybody for many years. And in fact, I read a statistic that you guys handle something like 1/3 of the nation's grain or something along those lines. I don't, you know the exact numbers, but tell me what it's like. I mean, when you're handling that quantity of flow and the logistics around it and the transactions around it, what is that like on a day-to-day basis from an operational standpoint?
Before I answer the question, I just want to add that I think sustainability is one of our, you know, key strategic pillars that we have, you know, presented as part of our global strategy. I think our engagement with FBN is also about the things we do well and recognizing, you know, the complementarity and the things that FBN has been doing for a number of years so well. So I think that that's very complementary, and I think that allows us to create more value for the farmer customer. So, well, a regular day in our company is typically, and I see many of ADM colleagues, and they will relate to what I'm going to say. Every day is a different day. Sounds like a cliche, but every day is a different day. I mean, we manage and monitor crops around the world. We have a lot of you know, internal intel about, you know, the things that are happening, the things that are not happening. We have to advise our customers. We have to run our assets. We have to make decisions about, you know, moving crops from, you know, production areas or origins, as we call, into different destinations. And those decisions, they are taking, you know, considering a number of different aspects, right? Logistical aspects, market dynamic aspects, and geopolitics as well. I mean, you know, there's, it might look a bit far, but we have a war ongoing. We as a company have 650 colleagues in Ukraine, and we have a number of people that we moved out of Ukraine. We have a crushing plant that is idle there, and so all of those things at the end of the day in a globalized world play a role in the way we manage our business day in, day out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big scale and it's a large volume of physical goods to move, right? But it gets done every single day. It gets done. right? And the idea is if technology, if we can bring technology to the forefront of it, then can it get done in a more efficient way? Can it get done in a way that's easier and better for a customer like a farmer or a supplier like a farmer? Is there opportunity for more income along those parts of the value chain because technology intercedes? That's the question, right? And that's what we're trying to prove or disprove through being able to bring some of these things to market and show you, you know, what the opportunity is. I do want to take a minute because we're going to cover some of the things around sustainability and regenerative ag, but I want to give you a bit of a perspective from FBN's perspective because you may wonder. You know, I get the question all the time, oh, well, you guys are from California, you know, what do you know about agriculture and what is your view of sustainability and the food system and everything else? And what I'm about to tell you probably may surprise you or it may not. It probably won't surprise you if you know me, but it may surprise you if you didn't know. Which is that we have a view of sustainability and the market that's actually, I would say, in the world of California, somewhat unpopular. Meaning we support conventional agriculture. We support modern farming techniques, including genetically modified organisms, including spraying of crops, including a bunch of things that you know, segments of society have deemed wrong. We actually don't view it that way. We view those as modern efficiency technologies that are actually remarkable innovations. And they allow our farmer customers to be more productive, get more out of every acre, right? Now, on the other hand, the way I look at it is if the world or if society is going to give you an opportunity to make more income, is going to give you a chance to be a part of, you know, some sort of a movement or whatever the case is to better your business, make more return, then I would suggest to our farmer customers that you consider it, right? And you potentially take it. But it might surprise you to learn that FBN actually takes a lot of heat from people because, you know, the biggest business that we're in is actually in chem, as many of you know, because many of you are customers. We also do sell genetically modified seed, and you know, in some worlds, those are not concepts that people understand are actually providing the nutrition for the world. So our view of sustainability really revolves around what is practically useful for our farmer customers, right? And we want to be able to support our customers where they are as opposed to trying to impose or find a future that is untenable, unreasonable, or can't allow our farmers to make more money. So that is the FBN view. And it's interesting when I get asked or interviewed or talked to about it, you know, sometimes we get some head nods and sometimes we get some views that, well, that's not what I expected you to talk to me about, you know, growing lettuce vertically or something like that. And that's not what we're about. Right? We're about, you know, a system of equity, but a system of opportunity that revolves around modern science and modern technology. And it has to, because without those things, I don't think that you could provide the nutrition for the world or be efficient with your land use or any of that stuff. So I think what the message is here is that, you know, we understand what it takes to be farming. And what we want to do when we talk about sustainability or regenerative ag or any of the buzzwords is to fit it into something that can work in your operation. Something that can work in your operation and be a real market for you. And so with that, I'm interested in your view of not just sustainability, but regenerative ag, what it means for the farmers out there, and what is a right way to participate? Because I've gotten questions like, things like addition. I've been no-tilling. I've been doing things for many years that are considered sustainable, but I don't get credit for them as a farmer. I don't get recognized for it. How do we answer questions like that?
Thanks for the question. I first of all, we have to recognize that regen ag, or you know, better and sustainable agricultural practices are nothing really new, right? I mean, if you look, you go back 40 years ago. You know, United States of America was growing 230 million acres, and today we grow the same 230 million acres, and we double the production, give or take, right? So you look at no-till, right? A dramatic increase over the last many years. Fertilizer use, I think we dropped by 10% in the last 30 years or so. So I think what we're discussing here is about recognizing farmers that farm better to be paid better, or to have some sort of recognition, and not, you know, look at the average or, you know, normalize things. So I think But to do that, we need to have the data, and we need to have the validation, And I think the context of this discussion evidently is, I think as a company, we are in a unique position, right? We understand, the farmer customer, and we work with the farmer customer. We also work with the CPG companies. Many of the CPG companies, they have committed, right, to reduce their Scope 3 emissions, as one example. And they need to deliver on that. So farming becomes a big part of the solution. And I think the positive thing for North America, particularly for the United States, is the environment is conducive, right? And the environment is, policymakers in North America, or to be precise, in U.S., they are very supportive of that, and they share the same view. I'm coming from Europe. I spent the last 9 years in Europe. That discussion becomes a lot more emotional, right? And there's not so aligned views about the role of farming, unfortunately, right? So what I'm trying to represent here, there's a clear opportunity here for the farmers, for the industry, and also for the CPG companies to deliver on their pledges.
Yeah, and to actually, again, it's the opportunity to say that, this is an essential need for the world. And, of course, we all care about the environment, but how to reach that practical point of productive farming, but alongside opportunity for our farmer customer, right? And to me, I can tell you at FBN, we would not sign up for a sustainability or regenerative or any opportunity that we don't think is financially viable for our customer. If it requires the farmer to make too big of an investment, if it requires tremendous financial risk, if it requires, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. In that capacity, we should keep farming the way that we have been. We're productive, we're meeting the needs of society in large part. On the other hand, as John was saying, there is increasingly infrastructure of support for this. And people who are willing to potentially pay more, depending on what your farming practice is. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about you guys, and this is one of the interesting parts about working with ADM, and I think hearing from John, is they work with some of the biggest downstream food companies in the world. And this is a connectivity that we don't have, right? We don't work as FBN directly with Pepsi or McDonald's or any of these other huge players out there. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what do you think CPG companies and food companies are thinking right now, and what is the opportunity for our farmer members in terms of getting in front of them and being a part of that value proposition?
I think perhaps the best way to represent this, I think we had announced not very long ago, right, a partnership with PepsiCo that involve regen agriculture acres, right, and creates value for farmers, creates value for PepsiCo, and allows us, to take another step towards improving the decarbonizing or improving the carbon score of farming. So I think that's one example. I need to be cautious here not to say more than I should. Many of those discussions eventually they have some sensitive considerations. So, but I think I would refer to that type of announcement. Without committing too much, but I think this is going to be just the beginning. And I think there's a clear opportunity. You also need to look at the bigger picture. The world today has a number of structural elements, right, that are favoring and putting, North America in a unique position. You have energy crunch in Europe. You have a war disrupting Ukraine and Russia. Russia because of sanctions, Ukraine because of the war. You have Argentina, which is another major player in the market, going through a lot of challenges. So, and then you have, CPG customers really willing to deliver on their Scope 3 reduction claims. So if you add everything to the mix, I have to say I'm happy that I moved from Europe to North America.
Yeah, well, I'm happy I moved out of California. I now live in Colorado, and it's kind of the same thing. And you know, look, the bottom line though is customers. I'll tell you one thing about California: customers in California will pay you a premium. I mean, that's a good news, right? And potentially maybe customers in Europe, I don't know. But, you know, look, different markets, different end points, but these are the things that create opportunities sometimes too. So, you know, whatever the view may be, and this is kind of the approach that I try to emphasize with our team at FBN, but also with our farmer customers, is that we just got to be practical about this, right? And say, how do you identify the opportunity for your own farm? How do you identify like what can be done that has a high ROI, high return on investment, a high return on your time? And that's where I think, you know, partnership, technology, these things come in. Because if you can be presented with those opportunities, then you can determine for yourself, okay, does this make sense or not, right? And I can share with you some things about that I've seen. We've done calculations on carbon credits and a bunch of other things, which I think there's some opportunities that are in the world of sustainability that are probably more risky than they're worth. And there's some that I think are real upside for farmer customers. I don't know what your thoughts are on that too.
Well, I think I would like to, not to create a confusion, I mean, with carbon credits, and I think the view we have as a company, and one of the reasons why we engaged with FBN is we really want to move this as a transformational process and not necessarily transactional, right? We are interested, and as a company, we have a long-term view of the relationship, we have a long-term view of the scale of this Regen Ag. So in that sense, that's the way we prefer to approach. Sometimes, you know, things are not all sorted out. We also sometimes prefer, you know, progress to perfection. But I think, you know, it's part of the challenge. I really think there's an opportunity. I think part of the, you know, you're just speaking about Europe. In Europe, I mean, there are many things. There's a big push for organic agriculture. There's a big push for, you know, reducing fertilizers in a way that perhaps it's counterintuitive with, you know, the food security concerns that we all have, right? We all know, you know, the S&D balance sheet today looks very vulnerable, right? In terms of we had a number of droughts or events around the globe. I think that, you know, there's always concerns that this can change real quick. And I think here we're talking about increasing productivity and creating a more efficient and recognizing this. And as I said before, pay farmers that farm better than average, as simple as that. And they should recognize by as such.
Oh, very good. So I want to leave ample time for questions, but I want to ask a few more because I think it might be really good insight. Is more general, switching topics, economic. If you're a farmer right now, right, what's the outlook, right, from an economic standpoint? You mentioned supply and demand. You mentioned the geopolitical things. Any thoughts you might have just from an economic perspective that you think about from an ADM perspective that might be useful to the customer as well, or farmer customers as well?
Perhaps, I mean, my observation would be, you know, we always look at agriculture as a cycle, right? So low cycle, high cycle, and cycle typically is more short to medium term. I think the many things we're seeing around the globe today are becoming structural, right? Unfortunately, we don't see the war ending anytime sooner. I think we have the energy crunch in Europe is not going to be resolved in another year. I think there are lots of questions how Europe is going to supply energy in 2024, for instance. I mean, you know, I mentioned, you know, some of the concerns involving, you know, Argentina as an example. So I just wanted to say this because from a North American perspective, I think the competitive position of the farmer has never been that strong. Perhaps Brazil is also in a good position, that I would argue. But Brazil is, good or bad, they are still catching up with the infrastructure, right? There's still a number of challenges, right? So I think in that sense, it makes me feel really good. I mean, we see more investment in North America. We're adding capacity in North Dakota. We have a project. We are, and the project is progressing well. We're building a crushing plant in Spiritwood. And just to say that I feel very good about just the business environment in U.S. I think there's an opportunity for the entire chain, right? And I see this not as a cycle. Perhaps this might be, a good run for the next few years. All going, all equal, right?
That's good. I remember when we started FBN, and for the subsequent 4 or 5 years after that, commodity prices were very depressed. And most of the farmers that I talked to, and if you were at this event, say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the mood was still cheerful. I mean, this event is always boisterous and fun and everything, and it's meant to be. But if you talk to any of our farmer customers about their operation, it was a bit more of a struggle, right? I mean, you had corn prices that were, $3, $4. Input prices, and I've heard this, and this is part of the reason FBN exists, but it seems like seed prices and chem prices and other things never really come down, even when commodity prices go up. And this is part of the issue that a lot of our farmers are facing today, right? Like, so the commodity price has been better, obviously, and very good in some cases due to geopolitical events, but price of fertilizer is way up. Hearing from a lot of our farmer customers that the cost of rent has immediately gone up very, very quickly. And so whatever gains that were there, they're temporary, and it's hard if you're, and I think about it in the context of just running a small business, it's hard if, the minute you have some good fortune with good commodity prices, the cost of fertilizer or the cost of rent takes it away the very next year, right?
I would just argue that I think it's a function of the market to keep farming profitable in North America. As simple as that, right? The market should work one way or the other.
Yeah.
Given what we're seeing globally speaking, right? And of course, we spoke this morning about black swans, right? And I thought it was funny to see that there's more black swans than the regular swans. But I think we had a lot of that in the recent past. But again, I would re-emphasize the competitive position of North America, given the infrastructure, given the structural events impacting, the global market.
Very good. Okay, look, we got about 15, 20 minutes left. So what I want to do is leave plenty of time for questions. And I want to make it free form for all of you, meaning anybody who wants to ask, feel free to ask anything. To the extent, nobody's here to censor me, so I can probably answer anything. We'll answer whatever it is that we can as candidly as we can. So please, anybody who has a question, let us know. Here we go. A couple here.
It seems as though the pressures, like in the United States and Europe, for all this sustainability is much higher, such as, I don't know what it's like in Brazil, or it seems it's non-existent in China, that we're not always on the same playing field as, we're supposed to do this, but somebody else doesn't have to do this, and so our cost structures get pushed higher to create more. We have to do more carbon credits, but yet, we're already doing it better probably than some people. The same as we do in producing oil. We do it cleaner than most, but yet we're supposed to shut down, and other countries keep producing. So it doesn't seem like we're on a very level playing field when it comes to sustainability.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So Roger, he's a really good operator who I've known for a long time. And the question was, is it a level playing field in sustainability? So basically, is China held to the same standard? Is Brazil held to the same? Or are we talking about Western Europe and California are the standard for farmers, right?
I think this is one of the challenges, right? And perhaps diplomacy has to step in because it's very difficult for private companies to intervene. What I can tell you is Europe is difficult. Europe is trying to get things addressed to legislation. So I think, ideally, I don't want to see what is happening in Europe to happen in North America. Let's put it this way. Brazil, I think Brazil is a bit, I can speak better than many, I guess, because I really know the country. And I grew up there, and I think there's I'll give you the example, our farm, 7,000 hectares. We paid for every hectare. Half of the farm we cannot touch. Is legal reserve. If we touch, it's a criminal procedure. So a lot of people don't appreciate those things. I think Brazil has a very strong legislation. There's bad actors, as any other place. And typically what goes out of the country is more bad news than good news, but the legislation is there and it's very tough for us. I mean, it's like you buy a car, you can drive, 5 days per week, you cannot drive over the weekend. You pay for the entire car. That's the way, when you talk about level playing field, even the Brazilian farmers could make a claim here. So again, I'm speaking as a farmer now, knowing what I do. So, but I agree with you. I think that at some point, I think it's part of the challenge. The way I would react to this, perhaps in North America, we can make a point and we can create a model that can inspire, some convergence in terms of, but definitely Europe is going the other way around. I mean, one of the reasons why, for the ones that follow crops, right? Rapeseed or canola crop in Europe, which is a crop that we follow closely. There used to be a 20, 24 million ton crop, today 16, 18. And one of the reasons is that there are no chemicals available for farmers. They were all banned. So the farmers now, they cannot grow a crop because economically makes sense. They have to grow, other crops because they just lack the technological alternative. So it's happening both ways, right? I would argue.
Good. Other questions? Saw some others. Yeah.
Yes, hello, Vince from Montana. Amal mentioned a bit about additionality and regenerative ag and sustainability, all words that have been buzzwords over the last few years and defined in different ways. Our farm has been doing many of those for many years now, and with all this carbon credits and that kind of market expanding and looking like there should be some advantages to be able to take care of. How do you view farms that have been doing this for many years? And is it purely just an additionality type thing for ADM, or are you looking to go back and, I'm not saying reward for people that have been doing that, but at least include it in some kind of the program of how you're looking at going forward?
I have people in the company that can speak a lot better about some of those, the nitty-gritty details. My view in general is that you should be recognized, but for the best agricultural practices. I think I did say that you have an average, right? Or you have an environment, and if you do better than average, you should be recognized as better than average. And if you have been doing this for a number of years, and this is when I think the partnership with FBN becomes so critical. We need to eventually, access the data and validate. And I know this is a sensitive topic for many of us, when we talk about data. But, we need to a secure platform. And that's actually what Gradable is giving us, right? In terms of validating and having, because the industry will request and will require, a proof or evidence. So there's an opportunity here for us to build a sustainable model where, your better farming practices become visible and validated and recognized. That's the way I would react.
Yeah, Vince, I just don't see how any of this stuff's going to work if we're penalizing people who've already been doing it. Like, that makes no sense to me, right? I mean, it's peculiar economic incentive. I mean, that would incentivize you to go the other direction so then you can come back and get the incentive. It doesn't make any sense. So I think that it has to be things like what John talked about, where you look at it as like the average, and are we above average, or we make sure that we take away strict requirements for things like additionality, which carbon registries and other things do appear to have. right? It's always been one of my issues with carbon credits has been the scientific validity of it, but also the concept of additionality, where you take someone who's been an economically positive actor and you effectively penalize them, in a world of opportunity, right? And that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I honestly think that just as a sense of fairness, you have to develop systems that reward and provide incentive as opposed to take it away. And that's kind of our approach. That's how we look at it. Is it has to be, and the second thing is I would say it has to be a market-driven thing. Meaning, if it's something that's made up or it's temporary or whatever, it's not going to last. And of course, there's changes and there's decisions that our customers need to make in order to achieve these incentives. So I'd hate for them to go and do these things, and then it's not a lasting benefit, right? And the way that it can be a lasting benefit is if it comes from the market, as opposed to something that's concocted by any one company or any one initiative or whatever the case is. So, really good question. So, more questions, please. Ask. There, Jay.
Yeah, this question's for John. I just wanted to get your thoughts kind of about the EPA's RVO's announcements they had last week, and specifically around the bio-based diesel, and if that would impact future investment in crush capacity or renewable diesel expansion. And then also, I guess the second part, do you think that gap will be made up in the future with a sustainable aviation fuel type of quota?
Is a very extensive document. I think it has more than 600 pages. So in many ways, we're still digesting the document, with all fairness. So I'll be cautious here. Yeah, I think the view in general is constructive. It gives you, a floor but not a ceiling. So I think it's still constructive. But we are really going through the document, and yeah, I need to be careful here how much more I can say, right?
Look, it's tricky when you have the government stepping in and changing things here back and forth. But I think one thing you can say for sure about this is you will see the market react rationally to it. But these things are, I didn't read it. Thankfully, I don't have to. You probably do, but. These documents, that come out from the government, they have so many nuances and loopholes and other things in them that usually, when the announcements come out, you can't just knee-jerk react to it because you don't actually know what it is they're trying to do. So you have to go back and talk to the people who wrote it, and like lobbyists. It's a lot of overhead.
And it's a proposal, huh?
It's a proposal.
It's a proposal, huh? It's
so,
not, so this will, go through a process. It's not, having a much in-depth debate here about the proposal I think might be difficult.
Yeah. Other questions? Oh, I know there must be more. There you go, right there. Back there, Jay. Yeah.
Next time we're going to have my sunglasses.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm from Spokane, Washington, and we're into growing more canola and stuff. So are you guys going to get, ADM going to get into crushing and processing canola in the state of Washington?
We do have canola capabilities in North America. Yeah, we don't have, you said the state of Washington?
He's in Spokane, Washington. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's very difficult to comment on. If there's an opportunity, typically is, I think we in many ways we have been pioneering, if you will. I think in North Dakota we were the first mover to announce the crushing plant. The first. Now there's other projects that have been announced. If there's an opportunity there, with all fairness, and I don't know the details of the region or the production or the scale. For us, when you think about processing crops, you need a certain scale. This is part of what we do, every day, right? We always monitor, opportunities around the globe, right? If there's an opportunity there at some point, I'll be happy to look into that. It's difficult to make strong statements at this stage without knowing more.
Or questions? Here. Yeah, right here.
Okay, my name is Josh. I'm from Wisconsin. When we talk about the money that comes behind carbon credits and getting credits for sustainable ag and those kind of things and it being market driven, I mean, do you guys see this as being something that would be like a contract traded on the Board of Trade, or, you know, what would be our what we're going to call our standard unit that would be used to monetize this?
I think, we have rolled out in 15 states, I think even in Canada, Regeneration, which is our brand for Regen Ag, where we define, prices per acre of the different agricultural practices. So, I mean, we already have that rolled out. So, that's, I think we're looking at having a contractual relationship with the farmers. So perhaps it might be better if you stop by the ADM booth and you can have a more in-depth discussion. I'm sure we have people here that can give the nitty-gritty details to address your questions. But evidently, we're talking about your monetizing that, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know on a contract. Do any of you remember the Chicago Climate Exchange from 13 years ago? I don't know how many people were around for that. This was an exchange that popped up about 13 or 14 years ago, and creating carbon credits. They had their own protocols, and a lot of it revolved around lagoon digesters at hog farms. It revolved around, in some cases, soil. But it was a voluntary market. It was a voluntary market. And I don't know if you participated in that or others did, but for a period of time, it actually worked. You know, they had a market, and I remember there was transactions that would take place. And then the downturn, the 2009 financial downturn happened, and nobody wanted to buy voluntary carbon credits anymore. And the value of those collapsed to 20 cents, and the exchange, Chicago Climate Exchange itself, went out of business. And I think the key to the kind of financial wherewithal of this whole market really revolves around credible parties like ADM being in the picture. So one thing I would say to any farmer customers we have is if you're considering something like this, right, an environmental security, whether you're going to do it carbon credit or whether you're going to participate in a program like Gradable or whatever it is, you do it with a very credible counterparty. And ADM is, I mean, you want to do it with a party that has the right balance sheet, that has the right risk management, because it's your revenue as well that's at stake, right? Which is why I think it's good to consider if somebody like an ADM rolls out a program, that's the right kind of partner, because there's also a lot of startups and other companies that'll show up and say, I want to do carbon credits or I want to do this or that, but they may not have the financial wherewithal to back up that statement, or they may not do the work that's necessary in order to make a true commitment to you. And that, I think, is something I give our farmers. I've always told them that, look, this is just like any other transaction. Like, you really need to think about who the counterparty is you're doing business with, and are they reliable? Right?
And I would add also, I think many companies, they just don't want to simply buy the offset or, I think they want to be part of the story. I think that's why Regen Ag, they want to be, understand where the more sustainable crops are coming from. I think there's also part of how this is evolving. We have been trading carbon credits in Europe, for instance. There's a regulated market. It's based on emissions. I don't know how familiar you all are, but every year you receive a certain amount of allowances based on how, if you have an operation or how much, and you have to buy, and offset the balance. And every year there's less and less allowances. So, but this is a mandatory market, right? And carbon credits today trade in Europe, I don't know, at 60 or 70 euros, right? It used to be a few euros back a while. But then you move into voluntary, I sense that the industry is more interested in understanding, putting a face, who are the farmers, where they are located, and how we're making things happening. I mean, that sounds a lot more exciting for the industry in general. That's at least my sense with the CPG companies in general.
So you're from Wisconsin? You're a Packers fan? No, carbon credits are worth 0. You're not welcome here. I'm real sorry. I'm sorry, from Chicago. It's just a visceral reaction that I have every time when I hear it. I think we can take probably one more, I think we take one more question, probably. Anybody? Please ask, anything. Okay.
Testing? Oh, yeah. Okay. Hi, I'm Gary from Iowa. ADM does a great job at processing commodity soybeans. I'm just curious, in the future, John, do you see any do you have any interest in other identity preserved or any specific, like high oil, high protein? You hear a lot about that in breeding and CRISPR, et cetera. But in addition to the great job you guys do at commodities, what do you see in the future as far as identity preserved?
I think that there are opportunities in terms of more efficient crops or specialty crops, if you call. I think we have announced recently a partnership with Benson Hill in terms of high content soybeans that we were planning to work through our supply chain in partnership with them. They have you know, I think that there's an opportunity perhaps in terms of being more efficient or more productive in terms of, you know, high value commodities. Some of those commodities, they might be a bit or more niche, not, you know, but we have been working in other parts of the globe, like we are probably one of the largest processor of non-GMO crops in Europe, for instance. There's still a number of countries that they, you know, I was living in Switzerland. I mean, Switzerland is non-GMO, so they are not even so. But is this, you know, massive scale? It doesn't look to be a massive scale, but we are actually very active in terms of playing those opportunities.
Yeah. Interesting question. Yeah, identity preservation, for example, you guys probably get pitched on. That's a whole other layer of opportunity, right, from a specialized perspective. Listen, I think we are basically out of time. So just to leave you with a couple things, there's a booth downstairs at ADM. There's also a gradable booth. It's worth, I think, stopping by and at least seeing the functionality of all the technology that's been built. It's not just about sustainability. It's about contracts and scale tickets and seeing all the things in one place and opportunity as well as premiums. But we have a lot of people from ADM here that you can chat with. There's people from FBN as well available too if you ever want to talk about any of these topics. So it's going to be a great next day and a half. Please enjoy. We have 3,000 of your colleagues here, and thanks for coming to this session. I appreciate it.
Thank you.